You might enter a room that looks small from the outside, but it's big on the inside. It's confusing. So we're just going to watch a clip of it, and in this clip I would like you to notice how the game breaks the laws of physics, and then we're going to talk about it. So this particular moment really got me when I was playing it. So this is a 4D museum, and as you can see, the art exhibits look different from the different sides. So this is impossible, it could never happen in real life. It's also totally nonsensical. At first it seems like this doesn't relate to our real world at all. It's so alien and unfamiliar that we can't possibly relate to it. And then there's, what's gonna happen later? I'm gonna skip a little bit. So you're gonna see this. So this is actually one of the puzzles in the game. You have to figure out what to do in this museum because most of these art exhibits are pointless, but there's one in particular that you're gonna see. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's hated. What?
And then you must walk through this part of the exhibit, and you bring yourself into the next puzzle. So that is pretty surreal. It's pretty alien. You saw how the game breaks the laws of physics. Why it betrays the laws of physics? It's probably just fun. It makes the game more interesting. But the question that's really important, and the question that I'm going to answer today, is why is it important that the game breaks the laws of physics? Because once we start looking at things, the game is a lot less alien than you might think, and it actually relates to the modern world, and it relates to your lives. So Antechamber's story is pretty weird and nonsensical. It's very unfamiliar again. What happens is, as you traverse through this strange world, you find these signs with wisdom on them. This is the first one. It says, every journey is a series of choices. The first is to begin the journey. You keep finding these signs as you progress through the game, and there's sort of plain practical knowledge that contrasts with how surreal and unfamiliar the rest of the world is. And the entire time you're also chasing this weird, here, this is what it is, this weird black cube flying around. It's, again, very weird. It doesn't make sense, and that's the point. And it's always just out of reach. At the end of the game, you capture the black cube. This happens, I have no idea what's going on here. The screen goes black and ends. It's very unsatisfying. You never get any explanation as to what the world is about, or what's happening, or what your purpose was. The game just ends. It's very weird, and it really got me when I was playing it because I was expecting it to amount to something, but just nothing happens. So to understand this game, we can't just look at the story as if it was a book or a movie. If we try to look at it, we're just going to get more confused. So I'm going to try to explain how we can look at this in a more productive way. So in English class, you might have heard of literary devices. These are devices that an author uses to tell a meaningful story. You might have a simile, a metaphor. Those are some common ones. There are also cinematic devices. They might have a zoom. They might focus on something. In a poem, you might have rhyming. You might have alliteration. And the point I'm trying to get across here is that these are exclusive to the medium. So for example, you're not going to have synecdoche or visual imagery in a movie. And obviously you're not ever going to have a zoom or a bird's eye view in a book because it just can't happen. So the important part is there's interactive devices in video games that you will only find in video games. So these are technical tools that a developer uses to create a meaningful story. And you're never going to find them in any other medium, and it's why video games are so unique. So one interactive device you might have seen is if you've read a Choose Your Own Adventure book that interacts with the reader. That's an example. So let's look at some interactive devices in Antechamber. And also, one note, when I say gameplay, I mean the thing you're actually doing in the game. In Antechamber would be solving puzzles. And the story refers to something that requires no action from the player. It might be a cutscene, it might be dialogue from characters. But the point is that gameplay accesses story. So in order to get to the next part of the story, you have to play the game. It doesn't just do it for you. That would be a movie. So the first interactive device is player boundaries. This is a very, very simple concept. And just where the player can and can't move in the game's world. So you saw a lot of player boundaries in that clip I showed. For example, you can't move into the museum exhibit from one side, but once you look at it from the other side, you can move into it. So that's literally all it is. And this is very significant to the meaning of the work as a whole. This allows us to connect the game to our modern lives. So one other player boundary is this exit door. As soon as you start the game, the exit door is taunting you. I was really confused by it. It's like, is this the exit? How do I get there? It's sort of taunting you because it's just out of reach the whole time. But once you finally get to the exit door, the player boundaries stop you from getting inside. You just access this sign. You can't walk in there. It just says life isn't about getting to the end. So it's unsatisfying. But it is true because the end of life is death, so you probably wouldn't want to get there. So that interactive device, the player boundaries, is already sort of hinting at the message of the game, which is about we should appreciate the journey we're on and not be focused so much on the ending of it. I mean, I think it connects to us in school right now. A lot of us might just be waiting to graduate. We're waiting to finish school. But this is painful. And we know that once we finish school, it probably won't be everything it's chalked up to be. Adult life isn't perfect. So the only path to happiness in life is appreciating the journey that you're already on. So linear gameplay is another interactive device, and it's when the player has no choice in how the game progresses. So there's one ending. Once you complete the game, it ends in a certain way, and there's nothing you can do about it. So this is the map of Antechamber. This is like the map of the world, and it might look like you have choice because of all the branches. But if you can see, all of these arrows and circles bring you back to the start of the game. So all of these paths are pointless. No matter where you go in Antechamber's world, you have no free will, you can't accomplish anything. It's just ridiculous. And this is significant too, because it again is telling us about what we value. Once we get into college, it's not what we thought it was. Once we get the job, we just want to move on to the next goal. We're never satisfied by the endings, And what I think this really means is, life is a progression from birth to death. And that's really all it is. That's our only option. We don't have any free will in that part. So what we can control is how we view the journey of life. We can gain happiness from the wisdom that we learn. We can gain happiness from the beauty of the world around us. It's so painful when we're trying to focus on, getting what we want. It's so much more liberating when you can abandon the ending and just live in the present moment. So I think that's pretty cool that a game with no characters, no dialogue, and no story can say all that with just interactive devices. And one thing I want to say about it is that Antechamber takes 3 minutes to complete if you know what you're doing. If you played the game before and you know the layout, it takes 3 minutes. And I took 10 hours on my first playthrough in total of playing the game. So this is very much like what you might do in English class. These are some books that have similar messages of Antechamber. So this is really like a whole school of thought that connects to what you guys are already doing every day. And here are the last signs that you find in the Antechamber. I think it sums up beautifully what the whole game is about. Okay, so I'm going to talk about one more game just to show more examples. And this is the Talos Principle. So the Talos Principle is basically a polar opposite to Antechamber in every way. The story is conventional. There's characters, there's dialogue. The world is familiar. And the story is you're a robot in a simulation. And it's basically a giant captcha. Because your goal is to prove that you're human to get out. So that's the goal of Antechamber. You have to prove that you're not a robot and that you're a human. So obviously, if you're playing the game, you're human, I'm human, I play the game, I'm human. But it asks you, well, how do you know? How do you know that you have free will? How do you know that you're not just a robot making decisions that other people tell you to make? So Elohim is telling you to make decisions. He's the god of the simulation. He tells you to beat puzzles. And then Milton, this is you, and then this is Milton, which is basically the serpent in the Garden of Eden, telling you to disobey the god, stop completing the puzzles, and try to exit the simulation. So here's a clip from the Talos Principle of talking to Milton, who's trying to convince you that everything you think about the world is wrong, and that you have no knowledge of anything. So I want you to look at this clip and try to get a picture of what Milton's personality is like. So you're talking to him through this computer chat. And you can actually choose which option to talk to him. It's not just a cutscene, you're actually having the conversation yourself. already you can see connections to the real world because, we make a lot of assumptions in our life about the choices we have and our duty as human beings, but maybe we should be questioning them more. Okay, so Milton insults your intelligence throughout the game. He's like a massive a-hole, but it's okay because we're going to see what this all means. So the story in the Talos Principle is different from Antechamber because it has multiple endings. This is non-linear story, which is where the player's actions actually can control what happens in the game. So in Antechamber, there's just that one unsatisfying ending where nothing's explained. But here you have a choice. So you can follow Elohim to gain eternal life, which just means being trapped in the simulation forever, or you can ascend the Forbidden Tower, which Milton says, hey, don't listen to God, go up the tower. So here's the ending where you get eternal life. Again, it's unsatisfying. The screen goes white, the game ends, you're trapped forever. Clearly, faith hasn't really panned out for you. But if you disobey Elohim, question his ideas and ascend the tower, you're brought to the real world and you can escape the simulation because you have proved that you're human. So I'm going to talk about one more interactive device and then see what it all means. So the challenges in any video game are basically what makes it a game. It's just when you get a reward after you complete a task. So you jump on the platforms of Mario, you save Princess Peach. Pretty simple. So a reward of a challenge can be gameplay related or story related. For example, a gameplay reward could be you complete a level, you unlock the next level. You do things, so you get more things to do. A story example would be you talk to Milton, he tells you a secret. So you do something clever, and instead of getting something more to do, you get more knowledge about what's happening in the story. So challenges are really significant because anytime you're faced with a challenge in a game, it makes you ponder some important questions. It makes you ponder what it means to do the right thing, what it means when we fail. It means, is putting in work worth it? What do we value? What rewards are really satisfying to us? How can we get happiness? And once you think about the idea that the challenges in the Talos Principle are all an illusion, and Elohim saying that you can get eternal life by completing the challenges is a lie, it leads you directly into what the game is saying, and directly into a connection to the modern world. Because in the Talos Principle, the joy of it is that you have a choice. Authority figures are telling you what to do, and are telling you how to get happiness. If you do this thing, you'll get this reward. If you chase this goal, you'll be satisfied forever. But that's not true. As we saw from Antechamber, it's not true. Again, the joy of life is not getting what we want. In this game, the joy of life is being human, because as humans, we have this unique and blessed ability to question our worldview and to question what people have told us. And that's amazing. We shouldn't throw that away. We shouldn't just listen to what people tell us. We should, a lot of us right now are, we're getting grades in school. We're listening to what people tell us. If you take this test and study, you'll be happy. But it never really satisfies us. I think we've all had that calling in our lives to disobey authority and to pursue our own goals for happiness. And I think it's really important that we have that sort of messaging in today's society. So, in conclusion, I learn a lot about myself when I play video games. I think it's really cool, and I think it's really different than a book or a movie because I'm actually living through it. I'm actually putting in work when I'm doing this to learn about myself. I think it makes me question my political leaders when I hear them, making promises to us and making laws. I think it makes me question school when I'm waiting to graduate, but maybe I can also appreciate the journey that I'm on right now. It makes me think about death, because obviously I know that's inevitable, but I know that I have the power and I have the choice to decide how I want to think about my life right now as I'm living it. And there's just so much more. It connects to everything. So I had a really hard time thinking about what games to talk about in this TED Talk. Here are just a very, 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 very small selection of other games you could play that have interactive devices that develop meaning. And what I hope you derive from this is that life is like a video game. We have a lot of choices to make. We have challenges. We have goals. But I don't want you to just complete those challenges and get those goals without thinking about what it means to you. Because we often take it for granted that doing a certain thing will bring us happiness or bring us satisfaction. But when I play these games, it makes me think like, what do I want to do with my life? You know, how can I play the right way? And I don't want you to let anybody else define that for you, because that would really be a shame, because that's the beauty of being human. So thanks for listening, and I hope Wait, am I doing questions? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Up to you.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Ryan said something about that. Okay, does anyone have questions? Yeah.
I don't have a question. I have like just a comment.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool because I thought going into the TED Talk, hearing that it was video games, I thought you were going to talk about video games like Overwatch or something like that. And I was wondering how you would tie that in with like something philosophical. And I didn't know that there were video games out there that actually produce meaning, like you pointed out.
But that's the thing is, Antechamber, when I played it at first, it doesn't seem like it has any meaning at all. I mean, there's not a single named character in that game. There's not a single line of dialogue in that game. So I think when we play video games, we assume it's just for fun, pleasure. But even in Overwatch, I think you can find a lot of meaning. So there's like, you really have to dig deep to find it. Yeah,
I thought this was super interesting because like in Lit right now we're reading Waiting for Godot, right? And I was just I kind of came in during the middle, but I'm really surprised that you connected it to video games, because I totally kind of didn't see that connection at first, but that's actually really interesting, and I didn't really think about how like certain parts of our life and like the plays that we watch and the books that we read, like the decisions that we make at school and kind of like what we're trained to do, like even video games. It's just super interesting how like that all kind of ties in full circle. So I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Lexi.
Just wanted to appreciate you for like I feel like in high school I haven't really had like the real chance to learn from my peer. Like I couldn't see you as my peer, and I'm just like inspired by you, inspired by this, and I haven't ever had this perspective on video games before, and looking at the art we're presented with, and I just thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, well, I would thank you, because normally when I try to talk about video games, people start running away. So now that I've trapped you all, I can talk about it without worrying. Okay, should we have lunch?
Yeah.
Should we have lunch?
Do it. Thank you.